respectmyregion.com, back with another episode of the Morning Joint Podcast. We are a day late, you folks, and this is my fault, man. I had a migraine yesterday, but don't worry. We're coming in hot. On the 102nd episode, we have a very special guest, man. We got the CEO, founder, co-founder of a bunch of really great projects in cannabis, man. We got Jesce Horton representing Loud and Grand National today. How you living, Jesce?
Yo, man, I'm great, man. Every day is a beautiful day when I'm in the cannabis industry, to be honest. So
I appreciate that, man. You already know, man. Cannabis people, after a certain number of years, it's like we lived in dog years, man. It's like 20 years for every year in cannabis, man, when it comes to stress and grinding. And you're a business owner, man. You're an entrepreneur. You don't just wear one hat, right? You wear all kinds of hats. And so today, Jesce, I really appreciate you being a guest on the show. I'm honored to have you, not just for any one reason. I've been following Loud since 2019. I've been watching Oregon kind of from over here because Oregon is its own little thing. You know what I'm saying? There's this perception around Oregon that there's just so much weed and it's so cheap and it makes it so difficult. But then brands like you exist and succeed. And so today we're going to expand a little bit on your story. We're going to let people know about your come up. Before we get going, though, Jesce, where are you at in the world, man? I know we were just talking offline. You're making some moves over on the East Coast right now, right?
Yeah. I'm all the way across the coast, across the U.S. Coming from Portland, but I'm in New York now. There's a lot of cool things happening in the New York market. So I'm excited to be involved in a few different things out here.
And you mentioned as well, right, that recently you had some exciting news, right? You just completed another program at Cornell to take your cultivation and your cannabis knowledge to a whole nother level. Can you talk a little bit about that knowledge that you just acquired and what you went through? And then I want to jump back to before all that and before the Carmelo stuff and Grand National. So what were you just doing in terms of education and schooling and learning and stuff?
Yeah. It's a really important piece that I wanted to add to my portfolio of knowledge. And I got so much industry experience. Started in the basement. I started off as an engineer, so a lot of technical experience as well. But one thing I didn't really understand was plant physiology and actually what's happening with the plants that we're growing, the amazing the amazing things that we're doing each and every day in the grow space. So I went back to Cornell and did a plant science degree focused on controlled environment agriculture to help to really round out my understanding of, what's going on in this industry and facility design and plant cultivation. And it was an amazing experience, to be honest, man. I learned so much that I'm applying to every day in the grow room, but also to different clients that I'm helping to get their own thing going.
I love education. I love that you decided that you realized that you needed some more knowledge and that you had this desire and passion to go expand on what you already had. And I feel like that comes from, probably your upbringing and just your desire to keep learning and be one of the best, right, at what you do. From my understanding, I don't get that you're one of the most competitive shit talking kind of guys, but I definitely get the vibe that you want to be the best and you want to have impact on other people, right? You want to have you want to leave a legacy to some degree, right? That's positive for a lot of people. And so I also, to continue on the education side, you're also teaching there in New York at a couple of universities, right? And so you have this experience, you built a cannabis brand, you've got partnerships, you've handled sales, you've got the science of growing and manufacturing products, and now you're actually sharing that knowledge with other people, right? And so talk to me a little bit about what you've been teaching and the schools you work with and things like that.
Yeah, I think it all goes back to, everything that I do, everything we'll talk about today goes back to this desire of I want to fulfill my potential. I want to be the best at what I do, like I said, but I realize that fulfilling my potential is not just about what I can do for myself, but about what I can do to help others. So this cannabis industry is a perfect place to do that. And that's what I'm doing with education. As I'm taking in this knowledge from Cornell through the industry, I've been able to do a lot of curriculum and also teaching at Medgar Evers and LIM College to help students understand cannabis cultivation, specifically environmentally sustainable cannabis cultivation is my course.
environmentally sustainable cultivation. That's huge. You got, I mean, that's where the direction is going, right? Like Seattle, Portland, those cities are giving kickbacks for various types of, we'll say, switching up your methods of growing, using different lighting, using this versus that, right? These cities are actually uh, working with these companies, certain lighting groups and whatnot, to be able to create just a more sustainable system for cultivation. Because growing indoor, it's not it might grow better flower in some people's perspective, but it does have a pretty big draw on energy, water supply, things like that. And so this is a huge program for you to be doing that and teaching the next generation what to do differently, not necessarily properly, or just varieties of methods to go and try out. So let's go back to your company, Loud, right? You've got this experience. What got you into starting your own cannabis business, right? Oregon's market, not easy. It wasn't easy in 16, 17 back in the day, and yet you decided to launch a brand and dive right in and kill it. You guys are doing great. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Thank you. You know what? I got into the cannabis industry just because, I mean, to be honest, I'm a weed head, man. I wanted to be able to grow, what I thought was the best cannabis, right? I love this idea of, like, when I was on the East Coast, and we get this dirt weed that was grown, probably in Mexico or somewhere like that, and then I'm looking at a High Times magazine and I see this amazing flower that's being grown, by a real cultivator, or a real, whether they be in California, wherever that was happening, Amsterdam. And I love the idea of, like, what was the difference, right? How do I get from this to the other? How do I cultivate this plant to real peak performance? So I actually just happened to land in Portland right around 2012 with the engineering position that I had. And, going from the East Coast, where I got arrested for a seed, to going to the, Portland, Oregon, where you can go into a dispensary and grab a clone and grow it in your backyard. I mean, that was
You
that
can
was
damn near go buy a
amazing.
coffee with weed seeds in it in Portland. They
Exactly.
might be grinding that up in hemp seed type of shit in your drink there, man. It's hilarious in Oregon.
Yeah, I wanted to explore that difference, man, and really figure out, how to grow the plant and how to ultimately grow better medicine, better cannabis to consume. So I just got lost in that whole world in 2012, going to grow shops, talking to friends, reading blogs, all those different blogs that were online at the time of different methodologies and things that people were doing, different strains. I
Do
just
you
got
remember which
lost in
book you
the
first started reading?
I didn't start with the books actually. I'm sure I got the Jorge Cervantes books, but really,
That's
I
why I
think,
asked, is because Jorge's the homie. So I always like to see which of the first couple
of
books people
course,
picked up.
you had to have the Jorge Cervantes, but really, man, I was jumping into those forums online, like IC
Mm-hmm.
Mag forum, THC Farmer, some of those forums that just had
Yep.
ends and ends of rabbit holes to come down, and that's where and also going to grow shops, man. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth.
It's crazy to think about the early resources and what's so different from now, right? But to back then. That's 12, 13 years ago, right? A lot of this early era. And then you think there's people that have been growing, well, that's 10 years. Then you got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I met somebody that said that they've been in cannabis 50 years, growing at home and transporting it, shipping it around the country, around the world was their thing. I guess technology back then made things a lot easier to do in some instances versus now, and so it's just some of these stories were pretty crazy. So you dive in, you get an engineering job, you're in Portland, you start studying, you start doing your researches. Then fast forward, legalization happens. And so what was that like for you? Because the process for cannabis is not easy. The process for cannabis at that time wasn't exactly a strong foundation yet. We're still learning. They say we're building the plane as we fly it in cannabis. And back then, way lot less was built. And so, what was it like in Oregon for you, just getting going, man, during that era? Because that's history.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, man. Oregon has had a medical program since, I think, early 2000s. So there was so many cultivators, right, who had the cards, and people who were kind of doing it at a smaller level, like what they call the gray area, essentially. And I kind of started off in that area where I could take the flower from my basement that I was growing or from my garage. Didn't have to get it tested at the time, but you could take it over to what we call the clubs or dispensaries, and you could say, "Hey, this is what I got left. Will you buy it?" And boom, they buy it at that point, cash you out most of the time, and that was a point where you really had the opportunity that many don't have today to maybe like stack cash. And a lot of some of the biggest companies in the world, cannabis companies, started off even in Oregon in that time where you could operate and stack cash and kind of make moves without having to have a lot of investment and all those things. So that's pretty much what was happening then. I remember I would go down to the Capitol when they were starting off, and I would sit in my suit and tie coming from the East Coast, and nobody in Oregon had a suit and tie at that point. So I stood out in a bad way, but I was ultimately just sitting in the back of those legislative halls and learning what was happening with this new wave of legalization.
Yeah.
We're really starting to license people, man. So it was a really interesting time. I'm thankful for that time. I learned so much, but it really just gave us the opportunity back in those, I think, Wild Wild West days, they call it, to get a start without knowing a lot, without having the investment decks, without taking on money and just kind of adding lights, add 10 lights, add 5 lights.
Simpler times back then. A lot less red tape, as they say, right? The framework that's there for you guys does allow for a lot of freedom and creativity and flexibility in some ways, but also too, it's very, very. It doesn't bend very much. They're there, right? The framework is there. And back then, yeah, you could take those home grow packs, do what you wanted with them, and take them to them, turn them into stuff, and I remember those days in Washington, man, and I really enjoy. I'm not old enough to have been around for anything else other than being a customer for these, but I definitely remember it had so much more of a farmers market vibe, just the community in general. And as the framework came around and it just became so much more of an industry, right? Of a formulated industry. And so you've been a part of the growth and the formulation of Oregon pre this farmers market, this friends and family vibe, and medicinal was this word, such a strong word back then. And now we're in this era where medicinal is hardly looked at and considered when we're in this retail environment. And so for you guys recently, your brand Loud, you guys just established a major partnership with one of the most recognized athletes of our generations, right? Carmelo Anthony. And I grew up watching Melo. I remember that freshman year in college. I remember him, the league, the draft. I went to a LeBron James game his rookie year, and I remember, man, I want to see if Melo really plays defense. That was what I remember saying. Because is it just hooping or is he going to play defense? And I remember I followed him his whole career. I even bought a pair of Jordans that were Melo's at one point. And I'd like to see you make that partnership and bring him into our space. He had already made some cannabis investments. In my eyes, none of them were dope. And then I saw him work with you, and I'm like, yes, we finally got one. One of these athletes, one of these celebrities, they didn't go with the first thing that was available. They found one. And I want to talk a little bit about how that collaboration came around, because there's a particular part of Carmelo's basketball career where he was rejuvenated, is what the press said, in Portland, right? It's like his comeback, and he goes on this run, this streak. We got his brand exploded again at that point. It was like I don't call it a comeback, but to some extent, from a brand perspective, it was. So walk me through this era of basketball meets cannabis and Portland and culture. Portland is one of the coolest cities in the world, but people sleep on Oregon overall. So talk to me about what it's like there and how this came about, and you being you and him. Come on, man. The people want to know how this happened.
Wow, man. No, you said a lot in that statement, man. There's a lot of factors coming into play with me and Melo working together. I think where I was with Loud at the time, and we had just launched not too long before Melo got there, and we were getting our start, and really kind of a rejuvenation for us because we had been from the medical days. We had changed brands a couple times, and this was our chance to really go. And at the same time, I think Melo was was finding a new spot in his career and coming into Portland. And then at the same time, you've got these two industries that are naturally bubbling up, right? This cannabis industry, but at the same time, the Portland Blazers with Dame Lillard and then Melo coming in, and that year, like going into the bubble or whatnot, we were really, really hot.
Yeah.
The year before, it was a really exciting time in Portland. And when Melo got there, I think somehow we linked up through some of the players, and we started talking about cannabis, started exploring. And Melo is a real consumer. I mean, he
Yeah.
knows weed. He knows he's not just one of these guys that jumped into the cannabis industry. He definitely is a connoisseur, to say the least. So us being able to vibe out and talk about where he wants to be in the cannabis industry. But at the same time, seeing what he was doing for the city, it was really cool. It was a
Yeah.
really amazing time. And I think Melo could have, like you said, gone anywhere. He could have gone to any company, big, large, multi-state. He
Yeah.
decided at that point that he wanted to make his entry into the cannabis industry through Portland, because he respects the Portland cannabis scene. He respects Oregon and where they sit in cannabis nationwide. So I think he made that decision to launch through Portland, and he made the decision to launch with us because we saw that we're a Black-owned cannabis company that is focused on doing a lot of things, not just for our business, but for other people in the industry and for other communities. So
Hmm.
there was just a lot of things swirling at that time that made us really align. And I was really happy that he stuck with it. Even after going through LA, we continue to stay in contact, continue finding strains that we wanted to work with and finding a purpose for his brand in the cannabis industry. And all that culminated 420 of this year, where we launched Stay Mellow, but also launched Grand National, which is kind of his desire, not just to have a cannabis brand, but to really make a strong impact in
Yeah.
this cannabis industry along with me and Brandon. So it's a lot of stuff happening there, man, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
That's huge. That's huge to me in so many different ways because one, I I'm a fan of sports. I think sports and music transcends cultures and people's differences and creates a space that is unlike almost anything else. I think both of the environments do. A competition breeds something, and the art, sound, seeing things together. It's just different. And I think you guys have been able to not only do something that is able to create an environment like that, but amplify. For me personally, cannabis, it does solve and fix some of my medical problems here and there, but it amplifies my life in every way. And to think about being able to go consume one of my, you know, childhood, middle, high school athlete people that I've watched if it was on, I'm watching. And to think about like, man, now I get to go watch some of those highlights online and smoke to it and potentially have it be from him, weed that he had a hand in picking that experience and thinking about that. It's this additional layer of interest, experience, excitement, creativity, to be able to directly connect with your player based on how they smoke. Not something people ever could have thought of doing, right? And I've been blessed to smoke Allen Iverson's weed. I thought that was super cool. Carmelo, I will definitely be one of the fans that goes and tries that when I'm in Oregon. I can't wait. I want to talk a little bit about I want to get into Grand National, but I'm a weed guy, and so I'm going to go into the weeds a little bit here because I
Yeah,
want to know what strains you guys are running, man.
yeah.
I just was in Michigan. I saw Calvin Johnson's brand running a bunch of gelatos and OGs from the homies at Originals and the Cure Company. So that's what Calvin's running. Another goat in a lot of ways, right? In his position. What is Carmelo? What are y'all running with Melo, man? What makes it a loud? First off, what do you enjoy running it loud? And then what made it into the Melo line? Let me ask those two questions clearly. That's what I want to
Yeah,
know.
okay, yeah, for sure. So, first and foremost, what I like smoking, I think what we pride ourselves on at Loud is really trying to have some of the most important flavor categories that I think are moving the industry. So we, definitely with the gelatos, we got, a couple of those, but the our platinum garlic cookies is bred by us, and it really hits that that GMO flavor profile with something really different to it. That's our best seller.
Wow.
Our cake mints, and truffle butterscotch, which is an offshoot of cake mints that hits that wedding cake, kush mints type of vibe, right? That is real stony.
Cakey, gassy, stony.
Exactly, right. That's a really important category. We've got a couple of apricot type of flavor profiles. Definitely, we've got also across of the two. There's a really dope flavor that we've got called maple bacon, and that's a cross of our platinum garlic cookies and our cake mints. So a bunch of different flavor profiles. I think that hit those most important categories that smokers really want. A couple of hazes.
Ooh.
So that's what we did with Mellow. Is it's not just about flavor, but it's also very much about function.
Yeah.
And the way that Mellow consumes is for function. So our triple threat one is where we have more of our sativa dominant profiles, and one that's really interesting there is this THCV cultivar that's naturally, I think last time it hit 22% THCV. That really is, so those listeners out there that know about THCV, it's all about, the appetite suppression, the energy driver, focus. Some people call it adderweed. So we've got that as kind of the predominant in our sativa line, but then in the triple threat two, we've got a really dope haze that Mellow loves, right? That kind of hits that haze check mark that they love on the East Coast. That is actually a cross of our platinum garlic cookies and our White Fire OG. Believe it or not, that shit is spit out a haze variety that we've got running at the number two. And then at the triple threat number three right now, we've got a gas face cross that is biscotti face mints and something else that's thrown in there, right? So it's a more of a traditional gas type of, you want to kind of smoke something at night that's going to slap you, gas hit you, and not really focus on, wanting to be operable during the day.
This is for after practice, and this
Exactly,
is for
right?
after the gym. It's the inflammation, decompress the back, get some good restful sleep.
Exactly, right? Or you might want to hit the club, right, and kind of be relaxed and chill. So
I do like to smoke fire ass weed at the club.
That's exactly something that really hits, right? You pass it to somebody and they're like, what the hell is that, right? So that's kind of where we're hitting with the triple threat 1, 2, and 3. And we've got some different strains that we're kind of cycling in through there to see what really works. So that's what Mellow is focused on with his line. And it kind of also hits where we are with Loud, but his is very much focused on function. So the triple threat 1, 2, and 3 are going to hit you in a similar way to get you active, to get you chill during the day, but not too sleepy or not too relaxed, and something that maybe is good for a nighttime type of vibe.
So those are the strains, and I'm a functional smoker, right? Like I said, weed. I use weed because it amplifies things that I'm gonna go do. I smoke a joint, I go to the gym. I smoke a joint, I go drive and go do something, and then I smoke when I get there, right? It's just how this all works for a lot of us, right? At this point. Makes things vibrant. It makes it better. Makes basketball, whoa, holy fuck, makes it way more exciting. Whatever it is, it could be, right? I smoked weed the first night, and then I listened to music. My life has never been the same. That was my experience. Not in high school, in college, right? Never forget that Thirsty Thursday. So you think like those are functional strains. And so for the people watching, when you guys are there in Portland, you got to go. We'll get into some of the stores that it's available at, but you guys got to slide there. You got to slaughter these stores we're going to tell you about in a second. And you got to go ask for the strains that's going to complement your life. Strains that are going to add value into your life. Like get the gas if you smoke gas, but also try a sativa so that way you can see what it feels like to get one of these high quality grown sativas curated by not only someone that's an athlete that uses this for, this and that and blah, 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 but also too, think about the team behind the brand. Jesce, the team that you have with your company, your guys are growing weed that's not just good enough for Carmelo, but it's good enough for Oregon's market, which is an extremely saturated, highly picky, full of connoisseurs. Cali loves to brag about how saturated it is and how great everything is, but we cannot sleep on the greatness of Oregon. Oregon And you guys up there have great cannabis. And so, if you wouldn't mind, can we shout out your team of cultivators and the people that help make you guys great? Can we shout out some of those people before we slide over to the retailers?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. My partner Dave Murray, really taught me everything about coming from the basement into like a commercial style cultivation space. When I met him, I was only the grower that I knew I probably could never be better than, right? And I was constantly striving, but his attention to detail, his desire to be better each and every harvest, I think drive to not just guess. There's so many growers that guess, but to really understand the reasons and develop processes that are repeatable, I think are unmatched from any grower that I've met in the country. So, when it comes to the fire that comes from Loud, I always stamp that with my partner, Dave Murray, and our other cultivation team, Joe and Tyler and Aaron, the people that not just make it happen in the grow room, but make it happen post-production. That's the key, right? What happens? You can have a great grow process for all these months and end up with what you believe is a perfect harvest. But then in the last 3 to 4 weeks of post-production, of drying, of curing, of packaging, all those types of things, you can completely screw it up. So post-production is just as important as this cultivation team, and that's what Aaron does. My cousin Thaddeus Clay, who started the company with me when I first got into Oregon and decided to make that move, he's still extremely instrumental in what happens there day to day. So you hit the nail on the head. I wouldn't be able to be doing podcasts or even be anywhere within an hour of the grow facility if I didn't have a team that I felt was top notch.
Shout out the team, man. There's no I in Loud and no I in team. It's a full on
There's
team,
no
man.
I
And so,
allowed, bro. I'm gonna keep saying thank you for that, man.
got you. I got you for one. There you go. There you go. Nah,
I
man,
love
it's cool. It's cool, man. I really rock what you guys are doing, man. I say this a lot when I travel around the country, man. Like our brand, we get to pick and choose who we rock with, who we support. Right? We're not funded. It's me, it's Mitch and I, and friends and random people that want to help put people on, right? That want to give people a platform. And Oregon in our first couple years wasn't overly receptive to us being from Seattle and trying to come down there and just work with everybody and showcase people. And it's still kind of, figuring it out, right? Colorado was the same way. And that doesn't mean that there's not greatness down there. And so I really appreciate you doing your thing to be a leader and teach other people and teach kids and provide a platform to bridge the gap into the mainstream culture with a partnership like this. I also want to say I'm half Mexican, and whether I am or not, it doesn't matter because ultimately you're providing a platform to minorities through your work and creation of the Minority Cannabis Business Association. That's incredibly important. I applaud you for that and just really appreciate your work in doing that. People should be doing more to provide resources, knowledge, and sharing this. And people always talk a lot on LinkedIn about doing it, and you live it, you live the life. And so thank you for that and doing some of that work for us and for yourself. I want to slide over. We got about 2 or 3 more minutes left. I want to finish off with Grand National. Grand National is, when I read it, the press release, I thought, okay, they're saying it's an agency, but it sounds like they're going to incubate projects and maybe do collaborations and provide platform and resources for people and kind of help do a variety of things, be a solution for certain groups and certain people. What are you guys in real life? What are you guys going to be doing? What can people expect from you guys throughout the rest of the year and going into 2025?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. We're a solutions provider. I think as we look into this next phase of the cannabis industry, you've got really an amazing group of brands that need to scale and need to grow. You've got really dope people out there, influencers, celebrities that want to get into this cannabis market and grow. And I think from that end, Grand National provides a service where we are helping celebrities, influencers like Carmelo get into the industry, helping them to grow with brands like Ben and Jerry's, B3, but also brands like mine, like Loud, that are not interested in developing infrastructure in other states, purchasing licenses, building out space. That's not the way that we can grow. The way that we can grow is through licensing deals and finding operators that want to have new, exciting brands. So we're looking at those the experienced operators and brands, but also some of the new entrants who want to get into the cannabis industry, providing solutions for them by finding operators, by assisting with their brand development,
Yes.
by helping with their influence through mellow streams and things like that. We're providing solutions, but also for these operators who are coming into these new states with big facilities, small facilities that don't have the ability to invest 10 years in creating a brand, 5 years in creating a brand, hundreds of thousands of dollars in creating a brand, that want to start off or want to get going with brands like Stay Mellow, with brands like B3, with brands like Loud, some of these other exciting brands that are out there. We want to open up avenues to these brands for them to hold them in their states, and help to differentiate their offering, whether they're a retailer, an operator, a distributor, wholesaler, whatever it is. Having new exciting brands that connect and have purpose in this cannabis market, I think, is the next phase of this industry and a real need in these new states. And we're here to provide solutions to those different parts.
I applaud you guys for that, man. As I said, I think it's absolutely a necessity to be bridging the gap between mainstream athletes, culture, whatever it could be, and into cannabis. That's only going to help propel the industry forward and open up more and more investment doors for people that are complaining about lack of investment. People need to have more faith in this industry. There needs to be stronger numbers with bigger entities involved that people can relate to. Fans of people like Melo can invest into things like this, uh, and future opportunities and so on and so forth. And so big respect to you guys, Grand National. For everybody watching, man, this was episode 102 of the Morning Joint Podcast. I had a very special guest today, Jesce Horton, CEO, founder, co-founder. We've got Grand National, Loud. If you are in Oregon, if you go to Portland, if you go anywhere in Oregon, make sure you go to a dispensary if you're a cannabis human. Ask for Loud, LOWD. Ask for their weed first and ask if they have Stay Mellow. It's super easy and it doesn't cost you anything to go and ask for them just if they carry it and for that they should carry it if they don't. And so definitely go do that. Jesse, you got something you want to say before we go?
Yeah. Specifically for Stay Mellow, Mellow chose to launch at 2 Justice-owned dispensaries in Oregon, shining a light on those dispensaries that really need a boost. So Green Muse in Portland and Natural Wonders in Portland are the only 2 to have Stay Mellow right now. Please go visit them, check them out, patronize those dispensaries, and we'll be across the state pretty soon.
You guys like, follow, subscribe, tap in with Jesse on LinkedIn. It's spelled Jesce space Horton. Check it out. Make sure you like, follow, and support us. Support them. Go tap in with all the brands. Go buy that shit. We'll see you on next week's episode. Jesse, man, have a good day over there in New York. Don't cook too much. We'll see you guys next time, all right?
Thanks for having me, Joe.